One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. My guest today is Ron McKeefery. Ron is a long-time strength and conditioning and athletic performance coach, but currently he's the Vice President of Performance and Education for PLAE, which is a global performance and education company. Greetings, Ron. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, man. I'm excited.
Now, Ron, you spent time in Major League Baseball. You were with a couple NFL teams. You spent time in NFL Europe. You were at Tennessee, South Florida, Eastern Michigan. You did strength and conditioning for Special Forces. And, of course, you were multiple times the National Coach of the Year. I'd like to know your thoughts on the interaction with athletic directors from the strength and conditioning and athletic performance coach, specifically as you would consider, and a lot of people would consider strength and conditioning coaches problem solvers when it comes to the health and well-being of student athletes. Can you give us some insight on your experience and a number of places you've been in that area?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate to have some fantastic athletic directors that I've worked for. I think everything goes on the spectrum there, right? You relate better with some than others, but for the most part, I've been able to develop a relationship with every athletic director, and I think that's where everything starts. I mean, in the athletic building, there's a few people that touch almost everybody in the building. The athletic director, the head football coach or the head coach of any sport, they touch many silos per se. But that strength coach is also the person that touches almost every athlete that comes through and almost on a daily basis, And so when you talk problem solving, your strength coach is really the heartbeat of an organization, and they're your first line of defense. They're the front porch when it comes to dealing with a lot of those issues that the student athletes have. And so 9 times out of 10, problems have been solved in the weight room long before they get to the sport coach or to the athletic director. And it's your strength coaches that are doing that, and so it's a very valued member. I know most athletic directors would agree with that. The problem is, I think sometimes there's, sometimes we live in silos where you have your sports medicine silo and your strength and conditioning silo and your sport coaches silo and your athletic administration silo. And unless you get out of your area, strength coaches, they're working with sometimes 400, 500 athletes. They don't have a whole lot of time to get out of their area and go and have chit-chats. So what I started doing in my career is I started asking our athletic directors to work out with our staff, and it's in that hour training session, you get to build a friendship, you get to build a bond, you get to talk, you'll talk about pluses and minuses of the program. But what I think most of the athletic directors that I've worked with in that capacity, what they've recognized is how dedicated your strength staff is, how loyal they are, how unique a perspective they have when it comes to the problem solving process. And one of the things that I tell my staff is don't ever come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution to a problem. And I may not agree with your solution, but at least you've thought about it and we can have a conversation. And I think sometimes when strength coaches do get out and they have to go and ask for money for budget, ask for support on a topic or something along those lines, they're only asking when it gets to a point where they just can't do it on their own and they need help. And in those moments when everybody's busy, if that's a short interaction or it's a firm no, or there's not really any kind of explanation, so somebody that's extremely loyal, that's fighting the battle every single day, that chips away at the armor, that chips away at the relationship. I don't need a yes every single time. All I need is somebody that's like, okay, that's a great problem. That's a problem. Recognize that. I appreciate you bringing it. Let's find a solution. Now, maybe I can't give you the $100,000 that you're asking for right now, or I can't get you that assistant or that new weight room or that whatever you may be asking for, but let's put it on the horizon. Let's start to formulate a plan. How can we do that? How can we do it together? And if you give marching orders, I always talk about the strength coach being the staff sergeant and working in special forces. Your staff sergeant's an enlisted man that rises to the highest rank that an enlisted person can, and they have the respect of all the enlisted soldiers, but they also have the respect of every single officer because the job doesn't get done without them. And that's kind of that strength coach. And so you got to have that. You got to maintain that balance of keeping them extremely motivated and feeling like they're a major part of what's going on, because they are on a daily basis. It's just it's long away. It's far away from the crowds and the recognition sometimes. And most coaches don't need that. They just need the support.
Right. Well, I'd imagine that in your variety of experiences dealing with athletic directors and athletic administrations who have the authority to okay more resources for whatever the resources were needed for, that there were probably different ways in approaching them, right? Some of them you had to come up with data and say, hey, here is the data that shows if we had this, it would take us this far, or our players are looking for this and we don't have it to give to them. Tell me about the different type of personalities that you've had to deal with, and for anybody who, if we have any athletic directors listening, what is the best way to approach them from your standpoint in terms of the relationships you've had throughout the years?
Yeah, I think just in human nature, everybody's different, right? And they respond different ways. Sometimes it's email, sometimes it's text, sometimes it's a note in the mailbox. Sometimes it's just a meeting in passing. And the one thing that, that I think every strength coach out there knows about the athletic director is how extremely busy they are in the job that they do, and they have to manage. I mean, the culture of the entire organization ends with them, so that's appreciated. I think the key to that relationship starting off is getting together and finding out what's going to be that method of communication. Is it just a weekly or a monthly meeting where you're going to get 15 minutes and you're just going to do a quick download and we're going? But recognizing both people's schedule. For me, that's going to be a text, the easiest way to get to me. Maybe for them, it's a face-to-face. So finding that common ground and then kind of creating a little bit of an agenda and then sticking to that. I think the similarities between the two professions are you don't have a whole lot of time for chit-chat, so it's usually going to be pretty direct conversation.
Get right to it, right?
But it's that touch point that I think you need to keep that relationship going.
And that's where you found success, I guess, is when you were able to create consistent touch points with the athletic director. That's where you found success.
No question. And feeling like you're heard, but also, and that they have an understanding of what you do.
And that's good information. From what I understand, and I've seen a lot of athletic directors and talked to a lot of them, like you said, they're very busy. Get right to the point, tell me what you need, explain to me why you need it, and then we can move forward. I guess if we have any strength and conditioning coaches listening, I assume that's the advice you would want to give them, like present your information in an organized fashion to where they can look at it, executive summary, understand why it's needed, and make a decision.
Yeah, I think having a vision. No athletic director wants to give money to an area that they don't know where it's going,
right.
And it's going to be you're going to be a good steward. I think it's having a plan of your resources, but it's also showing how you're gonna uplift and support the student athlete in the best possible way. And to me, that's you got the common mission. It's just finding what the communication strategy is going to be.
Right. Exactly. Well, this has been good information. I think basically anybody listening, from people who work in athletics or strength and conditioning athletic performance coaches, could glean some good information on how to present information to show both sides that they are problem solvers working to solve problems for the same customer, basically.
Same mission, yeah.
The same mission, student athlete well-being and welfare. I appreciate you joining us here on the One Question podcast. Now, you do a podcast on your own. You want to tell us about what it's called and what it's about?
Yeah, I have a podcast that's been running for 5 years called Iron Game Chalk Talk, where I highlight great coaches in our profession, authors, and I've had athletic directors on before as well, and just anybody that adds any kind of value to the strength and conditioning profession. So that's Iron Game Chalk Talk, and then I've written a book called The CEO Strength Coach that has done pretty well as well.
Okay, so Iron Game Chalk Talk, and they can find that on any podcast app. Just search for Iron Game Chalk Talk.
iTunes and the whole deal.
Oh, the whole deal with Ron McKeefery. Well, we definitely appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
That was Coach Ron McKeefery. He's the Vice President of Performance and Education for PLAE, which is a global performance and education company. And he has long-time experience in the NFL, Major League Baseball, college athletics. He's worked with the military and strength and conditioning. And he's been coached here a couple of times, and he's given some great information on communications with the athletic director. And this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.